One night at a time. Night 10. The gravestone ceremony is becoming a source of comfort for me. It seems like the only constant in Lingmell. I was just finishing up the ceremony when I heard a thud, thud, thud off in the distance. Thudding continued and grew louder with each step. From the forest emerged a house on stilts. No wonder the thudding was so loud. The stilt house stopped in the center of the village and a rope ladder descended from it. Curious, I climbed the ladder until I reached the platform on which the house sat. I had to remind myself not to look down, and instead focused on the door of the house in front of me. The door was this plum shade of purple, and etched into it was a hand surrounded by constellations. I knocked on the door. Almost instantly, it opened, seemingly by itself. Before I have the chance to call out, "Hello?" I'm greeted with a familiar scent. Sandalwood and vanilla flood into my nose, providing an odd sort of comfort. I regularly use these scents in my own home, as vanilla aids me in my memory and keeping a level head, as well as creating the feeling of safety and security. And sandalwood enhances spirituality, aids in protection, and provides a healing environment. I heard a sultry voice say, "Come in." I do as I'm told and venture inside the doorway. Before me in the entryway are what has to be hundreds of trinkets seemingly held up by the ivy lining the walls. I was still gazing in awe at the sight before me when I hear the same voice as before. "Come, back here." I ventured into the room past the entryway and see the source of the voice I had heard. Sitting at a table in the center of the room was a woman dressed in floral from head to toe. Her black hair flowed effortlessly down her back. I'm sure I stared just a little bit too long, because she interrupted me. "Do you like what you see?" I had been so entranced by her effortless beauty that I hadn't even glanced around the rest of the room yet. "Sit." Unsure if this was a request or a demand, I did as I was told. Seated at the table, I looked around the room. It looked like a massive apothecary. The walls were lined with shelves of jars of herbs and ingredients. It felt similar to home, but with more exotic materials. Among those materials was a single jar of eyeballs that kept shifting their gaze from the woman to me, then back to the woman. "I'm glad you made it. I was beginning to wonder if our fates had changed." I must have looked confused because she continued, "May I see your hands? Then I can ensure that you are the one I have been seeking." I reached out and placed my hands on the table in front of her. She gently grabbed my hands one at a time and lightly traced the lines of my palms with her fingers. "I thought so. Yes, you are the one I have foreseen." I took a deep breath, trying to prepare myself for her words to come. She must have taken notice because she paused for a moment and then in a soft voice said, "Perhaps, before we continue, I should give you a little background. I am Madame Cintha. The future speaks to me through visions in my head. It has been foretold that you and I would cross paths. Normally, I try not to interfere with the likes of fate and destiny, but I believe I am supposed to aid you on your journey. You possess a great deal of power and have the potential to change the course of the universe. I cannot tell you how, but I can assist you into tapping into that potential. If you so wish, we can travel together. You may become my apprentice, and I will teach you everything I know." My eyes widened as I heard the words flow from her mouth. I thought to myself, I can't even keep the protections on my house strong enough. She must have the wrong person. It's like she could read my thoughts, for as I was thinking that, she says, "I assure you that you are the one from my visions. I understand if you do not feel you meet the qualifications of someone destined for greatness, but truthfully, rarely does anyone truly destined to be great feel qualified." What of my job? Who will protect Lingmell of the night's antics? She chuckled. "Another witch will take your place, just as there was a night watch witch before you, and one before them." I thought this over for a moment. How could I pass up an opportunity like this? I looked directly into Madame Cyntha's eyes. "Before I can leave, there is one thing I need to do." She smiled. "Of course. I wouldn't expect you to depart when you were not ready." "Well, it's this guy I promised aid to. I've only acquired a couple of the herbs I need to break the binding placed on him after death. He desperately wishes to take his final rest. And, as a witch of my word, I cannot in good conscience leave without completing the unbinding." To my surprise, she replied, "Of course. I believe I should have the necessary ingredients you require for such a ritual. You may take them if you wish. Call it a gesture of good faith that you will return when you have finished." I nodded. "Thank you, that's very kind." I couldn't believe it. This was my life. I loved the village of Lingmell, but always felt that my days here were numbered. Madame Cyntha got up and rustled through the ingredients on the shelves. She placed a few items into a bag and handed it to me. "Go on. I promise I will still be here when you get back." I scurried out of the house, bag of supplies in hand, and headed down the ladder. I went back to my house. The ritual for unbinding is rather time-intensive. By the time it was complete, my eyes felt like they weighed a ton. As the music of the harp stopped, my eyes closed for the night, unable to hold them open any longer. I awoke in the morning to find that the unbinding had worked. I went to town hall to forfeit my night watch position, and then said goodbye to all my friends and family in Lingmell, assuring them I would return to visit often. I went back to my house and cast a spell to resize my home to fit inside my pocket. This way, I won't accidentally leave anything I may want or need behind. The house on stilts was still in the same spot I had left it. I climbed the ladder to be greeted not by the plum door, but by Madame Cyntha with a sweet smile. "Glad you decided to come back. Adventure awaits us." I followed her inside. The door closed and the house began its trek out of town to someplace new.